Hey, today we're going to talk about some basic algebra and how to combine like terms. So let's talk first about some terminology here. These are both factors. This here is called a base. This is an exponent. And this whole thing together is a power. So we read this as 10 to the second power. If I were to have 10 times 10 times 10, I could say 10 to the third power. 4 to the fifth power is not the same thing as 4 times 5. It is not that. This is saying 4 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 1,024. And I do let my students use calculators for problems like this. 8 to the fourth power, it is not 8 times 4, it is 8 times 8 times 8 times 8, 4,096. Equations have equal signs, equal equations. Expressions do not. And when we say to simplify an expression, we're just trying to get it into its simplest form. A term is a part of an expression. So we might have an expression that says 8x plus 5. We don't know what x is, so it's not an equation because there's no equal sign, but 8x plus 5 would be an expression. 8x is a different term, different kind of term than the 5. So here are different terms you might see in an expression, and let's sort them by their kind, like terms. So we have 4x squared. Which others of these have the x squared? Well, we have this one, negative 9x squared. We have this one, 30x squared. These are not like terms because there's only a 1 exponent. These have a 2 exponent. If there was one that had a 3 exponent, like this, it would be its own like term with something else that had x to the third power. So we have the 8x that can go here, 6x can go in this box, and then these are like the 3. And they're actually called constants because they don't have a variable. So if something does not have a variable, it is called a constant. This here is a coefficient and this is a variable. So this is called a coefficient. This is a variable. And a variable can be any letter. We use lowercase letters. And so when we're doing algebra, we don't use the x as the multiplication sign because it can get confusing. X can be a variable. That is why in algebra, you will see 2 times 3 like that, or you'll see the dot, or you'll have 2n, and n is a variable that we don't know what the value of n is, or 2n plus 3. This is a constant, this is a coefficient, this is a variable, this whole thing is a term. And this is a term. So let's look at this expression. It's an expression because there's no equal sign, and let's simplify it. In algebra, we always want to get things to its simplest form. Simplest form means there are no like terms and there are no parentheses. To do this correctly, we have to rewrite every subtraction as an addition. So what we're going to say is 6n plus negative 1. Instead of saying subtract 1, we're going to say it's a negative 1 plus negative 8n plus 9. And then some of my students will say, well, can we just write it in like this? Technically, yes, but I always like to rewrite my problems, give myself plenty of space as I go so that I don't make any little silly mistakes and wind up getting the wrong answer because I made a silly mistake up here. So I rewrite the whole thing. And now we combine like terms. So let's look at the 6n and this one here. This is 6 plus negative 8. So we have to remember those integer rules. This is actually going to be negative 2n. Then we can combine these two, and it's negative 1 plus 9. Well, that is 8. And then this is my answer. There is no equal sign, but it is in the simplest form. Let's simplify this algebraic expression. We are going to rewrite it 8z plus x plus -5 plus -9z plus 2. And then we will combine the like terms. So let's look at these z's first. We have 8z and a -9z. That's going to wind up being -1z. So we just say z. We don't have to put that 1 there. Z has an invisible 1 in front of it. And then we have x's. There's no other like terms with the x, so it's just plus x. And then we have a -5 and a 2, so we're going to say -3. And that is our answer. You can also do this in different orders. It could be x minus z minus 3. Let's do this here so we don't think that's a 2. Okay, so now let's combine the terms. Let's look at the y's first. We got this y here and this y here. We have a -1y with plus a -16y. That's -17y. And then let's look at the z's. 9 and -25. It's going to be 25 minus 9. It's going to be a negative number. So that is -16z. And then 4 doesn't have a like term, so it is just out here. This constant is just right there. And then this is the answer. And then really quick, once we know what those values are, so let's say we have 8x plus 4. If I know that x equals 2, I just plug that in. It is not the same as 82, not that. It's 8 times 2, so that would be 16 plus 4. And the answer would be 20. But if we don't know the answer to what is the value of x, then this would be our simplest form, so that's our answer.